You ever notice how a single word can just explode? How it can become a total battleground? Well, today we're digging into one of the biggest ones out there, woke. It's a word you hear literally everywhere now, but its journey from a call for awareness to a full-blown political weapon is a really fascinating and kind of wild story. And it tells us a whole lot about where we are right now. So let's get into it. So, yeah, the big question is, how did this happen? How did woke become one of the most divisive words in the English language? Well, the answer isn't simple. To really understand the political fight that's happening right now, we have to go all the way back. We have to understand the word itself, where it came from, what it actually meant, and how it was so perfectly flipped on its head. Now, the sources we're diving into for this explainer, they make a pretty specific and honestly provocative argument. They basically contend that using woke as an insult isn't just a simple disagreement over politics. No, they argue it actually functions as a modern form of coded racism. And look, that is a heavy claim. So our goal here is just to unpack how these sources build that case, piece by piece.
To even begin to understand this argument, the sources say we have to start at the very beginning. And the word's origins, they're not in some university or a political think tank. They're rooted in a community's very real struggle for survival. And that original context, it's absolutely the key to understanding everything that comes next.
The phrase "stay woke" comes from African-American Vernacular English, or AAVE, and the sources are really clear on this point. AAVE isn't just slang. It's a complex, sophisticated language system, a powerful tool that was developed for navigating a hostile world with precision and resilience. Stay woke was a crucial piece of that. You could even call it a linguistic survival kit.
And this is not a new term, not by a long shot. This timeline really shows its deep, deep roots. We're talking the 1930s, where it was a literal warning to travelers. By the 60s, it was a known signal within the Black community for being aware of the social and political dangers around you. Then, after being reintroduced through music in 2008, it just exploded in 2014 as the rallying cry for the Black Lives Matter movement. It was a call to be aware of systemic racism and police brutality.
This quote right here, from the bluesman Leadbelly, this really grounds the original meaning of the word. This wasn't about being trendy. This wasn't about an ideology. In the Jim Crow South, staying woke was about staying alive. It was a direct, literal instruction to be vigilant because racist violence was a constant threat. It's that serious.
Okay, so if the word was so deeply rooted in this urgent call for awareness of racial injustice, how on earth did it become an insult? The sources we're looking at, they call this the Great Political Flip, and believe me, it marks a dramatic turning point in the word's story. According to this analysis, the whole transformation happened in three pretty distinct steps. First up, dilution. The term got stretched out. It went from being specifically about anti-Black racism to covering pretty much all social justice issues. They call this semantic bleaching, and it weakened its original power. Then came what's called woke washing. You know, corporations slapping the term on their marketing, which led to a lot of mockery of performative activism. And that mockery, it created the perfect opening for the final step. Political opponents grabbed onto it and weaponized the term, turning it into a catch-all insult.
And this slide right here, this shows you the end result of that flip. It's so stark. On one side, you have the original meaning, a life-or-death awareness of systemic injustice. On the other, you have its new weaponized meaning, this vague, dismissive insult for anything from political correctness to liberal overreach. The really crucial takeaway from the sources is that this new meaning doesn't just replace the original, it actively tries to erase it.
So how does this weapon actually work in a political context? Well, the sources argue that it operates as a very specific tool of coded language. To really get this, we need to talk about something called the political dog whistle.
Right. A political dog whistle, as the sources define it, is basically a message designed to be heard in two different ways at the same time. For most people, the general public, it sounds harmless, maybe just like standard political talk. But for a very specific target audience, it carries a second, much more pointed meaning. And the whole strategy is built on being able to say, hey, that's not what I meant. It's all about plausible deniability.
So let's apply that directly to anti-woke rhetoric. The plausible deniability part is the public claim, right? Oh, we're just criticizing liberal culture or pretentious elites. But the coded signal, which the target audience understands loud and clear, is a resistance to the demands of movements like Black Lives Matter. So, the sources argue, the ultimate target isn't just a word, it's the actual policies and ideas aimed at fixing institutional racism.
And look, this isn't just a theory. The sources point to really concrete examples, like Florida's Stop Woke Act. I mean, the name itself uses the weaponized term to sell a policy that heavily restricts how race and gender can even be talked about in schools and workplaces. You can see a direct line from the coded language to real-world consequences.
But the analysis goes even deeper. It argues that what happened to woke isn't some new shocking phenomenon. It's actually part of a very well-established historical pattern, taking words associated with minority empowerment and turning them into weapons.
The sources say there's a clear historical playbook. Think about it. In the 1960s, Black Power, a call for self-determination and community control, was reframed as a violent threat. Then, in the 1990s, political correctness, which started as an idea about using respectful language, was twisted into a punchline about censorship. The argument is that woke is simply the latest word to get this exact same treatment.
So according to this analysis, the playbook, it's always the same. A word or a phrase that starts out as a demand for dignity, for awareness, for justice, gets co-opted, and it gets reframed by its opponents as an attack on something they hold dear, tradition, freedom, the way things are.
And that brings us to this really powerful thought from the source material. It argues that when you strip everything else away, the fight isn't really about a word at all. The hostility that's aimed at the word woke, it's ultimately a stand-in for hostility toward the very idea it represents, a consciousness of systemic injustice.
So, to wrap up the core argument we've explored today, the analysis suggests that the only reason woke could become such a powerful political weapon is because of its history. Its power as an insult is seen as being directly chained to its origin as an authentic, powerful call for racial consciousness. In this view, the weapon only works by erasing that history while at the same time exploiting its echoes.
And that leaves us with one last question to think about, a question that the analysis really leaves hanging in the air. What happens to all of us, to our political discourse, when the very language that was developed to call for awareness is successfully turned into a weapon to enforce silence? It's a question whose answer is still unfolding all around us every single day. Thanks for joining this explainer.